Every morning, the factories of Shanghai power up, the highways of Delhi fill with trucks, and the export economy of Seoul shifts into gear. This vast engine of Asian manufacturing and global transport demands fuel on a scale that is almost difficult to picture. The vessels feeding that appetite are enormous. A single supertanker can stretch 3 football fields long, drawing 20 meters of water beneath its hull. But these leviathans do not sail freely wherever the ocean takes them. They are locked onto very specific maritime paths. If you trace those supply lines backward from Asia across the Indian Ocean, they all collapse into a single point. The entirety of that global demand converges on a tiny seam of water between Iran and Oman. Nearly 20 million barrels of oil flow through this gap every single day, representing 1/5 of all the petroleum consumed on Earth. And it includes liquefied natural gas, requiring highly specialized carriers to chill and transport the fuel from Qatar to the rest of the world. By running the lifeblood of the global economy through such an extreme funnel, a small, easily overlooked kink in the map becomes a supreme vulnerability for modern industry. At its absolute narrowest, the space between the tip of Oman's Musandam Peninsula and the Iranian coast measures just 21 miles across. You could stand on one shore and see the other on a clear morning. But that width is an illusion. The water here is shallow and funneled. The supertankers, with their deep drafts, cannot spread out across the full 21 miles. They are forced into a tight, predictable track to avoid running aground. Look closely at this schematic. The working width of the corridor is restricted to just 2 shipping ribbons, one for inbound traffic, one for outbound. Each lane is strictly limited to 2 miles wide, separated by a thin buffer zone to prevent collisions. Once a massive vessel enters one of these ribbons, it commits. It cannot dart away from a threat or dodge a hazard. It simply creeps forward at a crawl, entirely exposed. By funneling the lifeblood of global trade through an unavoidable 2-mile track, geography has unintentionally built the perfect bottleneck for a smaller power to exploit. The southern shore overlooking this water belongs to Oman's Musandam Peninsula, a rugged exclave marooned from the rest of the country. Oman treats this towering terrain with caution, acting as a careful mediator more invested in protecting trade than starting trouble. Over on the northern shore, Iran holds a geographical monopoly. It controls the high ground of the coastline and holds 7 of the 8 major islands scattered directly across the transit path. Just inside the Gulf, Iran maintains its principal naval base at Bandar Abbas. This position provides a permanent observation deck overlooking every single merchant ship and warship moving between the Gulf and the open ocean. When your coastline wraps around a strait this narrow, you do not need a fleet of advanced deep-water destroyers to exert control. In shallow, highly constrained waters, supremacy belongs to cheap, highly mobile weapons. Anti-ship missiles tucked into coastal mountains, naval mines, and swarms of fast-attack speedboats can easily outmaneuver heavy ships trapped in the narrow lanes. Fixed physical geography acts as a potent force multiplier here. It grants a smaller military the absolute leverage to hold the superior economic power of global trade at risk. Gulf oil producers understand this vulnerability perfectly. For decades, they have poured billions of dollars into engineering overland bypass routes to escape the trap of the strait entirely. Saudi Arabia carved out the East-West pipeline, a massive undertaking cutting hundreds of miles straight across the desert to dump millions of barrels directly onto the Red Sea coast. The United Arab Emirates also built a similar escape route. The Abu Dhabi crude pipeline moves oil completely overland, bypassing the chokepoint to reach the port of Fujairah on the open ocean. Even with all these overland pipelines running full, they move only 5.5 million barrels a day. That barely dents the 20 million barrels still squeezing through Hormuz. Furthermore, pipelines and export terminals are entirely static targets. The Saudi line has suffered drone strikes, and the port of Fujairah itself has been attacked. Moving the oil over land only relocates the danger. It doesn't eliminate it. Despite all the steel, concrete, and capital thrown at the problem, human infrastructure remains entirely inadequate against the stark mathematical reality of the map. The danger here is far from theoretical. During the grinding Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, the conflict bled directly into the shipping lanes. In what became known as the Tanker War, merchant vessels were routinely harassed, boarded, and attacked. Keeping the oil moving required drastic measures. Navies from around the world had to dispatch warships to escort neutral civilian tankers single file through the gauntlet. In 1988, an Iranian naval mine tore a hole in the USS Samuel B. Roberts, nearly sinking an advanced frigate with a single cheap explosive. The tension of operating heavily armed forces in such close quarters inevitably breeds catastrophic miscalculations. Later that same year, a jumpy American warship mistakenly shot down Iran Air Flight 655, killing all 290 civilians aboard. International law technically guarantees a right of transit passage through these waters, but a treaty is essentially a paper shield. It offers exactly zero physical protection when the proximity of the geography naturally breeds paranoia. For decades, shutting down the strait was a threat leveraged in negotiations, but never fully executed. That changed in 2026, when a wider regional conflict finally saw the corridor choked off entirely. The disruption was immediate. Unidentified explosions damaged vessels, and armed guards boarded merchant ships. A fresh scattering of naval mines forced the defenseless supertankers to simply drop anchor in the dark water and wait. The paralysis triggered an immediate cascading economic freeze. Marine insurers multiplied their premiums, vessel owners refused to sail, and immense backlogs of cargo piled up at the terminals. In the trading rooms of London and New York, the price of a barrel spiked violently. The oil hadn't run out. Sudden, paralyzing fear had been injected into an irreplaceable supply chain. This event exposes a specific illusion of the modern era, the belief that humans dictate global trade through treaties, technology, and lines drawn on paper. The Strait of Hormuz proves that geography remains the permanent, unyielding power that ultimately dictates the course of human history.